Hi, my name is Erin Lopez, and this is my final project for educational finance. This is the Missing Booster Club Funds case study and how I viewed it. So the case summary for this involved Daniel Stevens, who is the principal of the school, and he was by himself, so he didn't have an assistant principal or anything. Mrs. Bowman, who was a parent volunteer, she worked with the Booster Club to collect funds for tickets and concession stands. There's Lucy Bowman, who is Mrs. Bowman's daughter. She is a cheerleader who has just gotten several awards. And then there's Mr. Domas, who is a parent that Mr. Stevens has a conversation with during this that has some information that's pertinent to this. So what happens is that there's concern that $50 might be missing from some of the ticket sales that were made during a football game. This football game took place on a Friday night. Mr. Stevens was not able to be present for the ticket sales, but was there afterwards. And when he counted everything up, he noted that there were 10 tickets that were marked as being ripped, and there was $50 missing, specifically a $50 bill that he believed was going to be there and was not there. Now, as I went through and identified the problems within this and analyzed it, I decided that what I did know is that there might be $50 missing from this. There were tickets that there was a note saying the tickets were ripped and were not in there, but the actual tickets were not there. There's a parent that said that they paid with a $50 bill, but there was no $50 bill in the bank bag when Mr. Stevens took it. And then Mrs. Bowman might be a disgruntled parent based on a conversation that Mr. Stevens and Mrs. Bowman had earlier on. So the things that I would like to know where the ripped up tickets went, because I think that's incredibly important both for the procedures done with collecting tickets, as well as knowing if there was anything that went wrong with this transaction. I'd like to know where the $50 bill went. They might have ended up giving it as change if someone paid with a $100 bill. And if there isn't any sort of cooperation with all of that, then where did the bill go? And then I would also like to know who else was involved with ticket sales. There was a plan that 2 people are always involved with ticket sales and concession stand, but Mrs. Bowman is the only one discussed in the case study. So I decided from this, the administrators were not directly supervising the ticket sales, which was part of this. If there was a direct supervisor, then there wouldn't be as much questioning. And then the second problem is that there might be money missing from the deposit bag. So as I started my plan on how I would handle this, I decided first to maintain relationships within the community and the school, that I would like to just speak with Mrs. Bowman first about the missing tickets. She might still have the tickets, and if she does, then that's the end of the problem right there, because the money did match up with the extra tickets. And so if they are still documented and she has them, there's no question. If she does not have the tickets, then I would next like to find out who the other volunteer was in all of this. If I can speak with the other volunteer, then there might be a different explanation. So once I know who the other volunteer is, I would like to talk to Mrs. Bowman and the other volunteer about where the $50 bill went. They might have a great reason why. And if they can't explain why, then I would next start with creating a policy of turning in damaged tickets so that this doesn't happen again. If there is some sort of discrepancy as to the tickets can't be found, they can't explain where the $50 bill went, then I would start digging deeper into talking to Mr. Domas again about if he paid and determining if they should be volunteers anymore within the Booster Club. So this resolution is based on promoting for success for all students, because to start off, the PTA and Booster Club's goal is to supply the resources needed for students to be successful in the school. So to provide those resources, you have to make sure that the money is there, which means that you need to make sure that all funds are accounted for at all times and that procedures are in place to make sure that those funds can be accounted for easily. This plan also helps with the culture. If there was an issue with somebody actually taking money, then dealing with it quickly helps show that there is a culture of we do what's best for students, and you will be held accountable for making sure that we are having all funds dealt with properly. Now, as I went through this, as far as my thinking, my feelings, and my values and all of this, my first thought went straight to the tickets, that the tickets were noted as being damaged, but they weren't there, which I thought was very strange, that there was a note but no actual tickets. If you're going to have numbered tickets, I feel like the tickets should be documented. And if they're damaged, then they still need to be physically available for counting. I also wondered about Mrs. Bowman. Mr. Stevens said the PTA would not pay for her daughter's trip. And I would like to know more about the relationship between Mrs. Bowman and Mr. Stevens, as well as with the school. Is she someone that is well trusted? Or is this someone that he would question what she would do? It's hard to tell without knowing how upset she was about the situation or having a conversation with her to really get a read on all of that. It was also never mentioned of who else was involved in the ticket sales, which I thought was a little strange. If you're going to investigate something, you really need to know who all was involved in it and make sure that everyone is held accountable, not just someone who is disgruntled. So this fits into effective and efficient management of a school within our standards, because they were maintaining a strong relationship with all stakeholders throughout this. Mr. Stevens does a great job of bringing in volunteers and having them help out with all kinds of stuff, between having a booster club and a PTA and having people running these concession stands and ticket sales. That's a lot of parent support, and that takes a lot of management to be able to do that. He also has effective management because he is monitoring the funds closely. He was able to know that there might be a discrepancy as soon as the game was over, and he also had a second person there, the security guard, who helped him with that. So he has more documentation and witnesses. And then when an issue arises, this case study and my plan that I created addressed the issue very quickly. As soon as it was determined that money was taken, then conversations would start happening with people to determine if there was a discrepancy there, to make sure that things aren't swept under the rug or that problems aren't allowed to continue because no one is saying anything. So for promoting the social learning of every student, Mr. Stevens does a great job with this because he has a strong relationship with the community again, and this is a great model for team effort and how to create success in the real world. He was talking to parents at the sporting events and was very involved within the community, which is, again, just a great model for kids. Secondly, having student events that are non-academic. These were super social events, football games and stuff that students are allowed to come to. It said they were involved in 3 different sports plus the cheerleading. And so there were a lot of social opportunities for the kids that the Booster Club and PTA supported. And then acknowledging student accomplishments. It said that Mr. Stevens was announcing Lucy's successes at the school and really celebrating those with the kids. Helps them understand social norms and how to really be positive about what's happening in their lives. And then for promoting student academic learning, all of these funds that are collected are going towards having student success academically. These provide resources. And so making sure that these funds are accounted for, again, it helps build the academic success because you're ensuring that there are funds to provide stuff for the kids. And then guaranteeing that the funds are actually going to be used for academic learning. Having a conversation with a parent that you're not going to pay for their student's trip because it only benefits the one student and it's not academic is a difficult conversation, but he stood his ground with it and made sure that he was going to use those funds for what he believed was important. And then making sure that funds are tracked. He quickly determined that there was a loss in funds, and figuring out how do you get those returned if there was a loss in funds is incredibly important to continue those funds being put towards all the academic learning that is happening. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation and got some great ideas on how to handle a case study yourself. Thank you.